Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer, the priestess of wealth. Woman, it is time to heal thyself.
Hi, welcome to day 6 here at Women Arising. We're very excited to introduce to you Jenny Brav. She is an EFT and matrix re-imprinting practitioner, and she does a lot of really interesting combinations of healing practices at Radiant Wholeness, which is her company. And she has a really beautiful international background of sort of doing all kinds of really positive work all over the world. And Jenny, I'd love to just hear a little bit about your background and kind of how you came to this work.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with both of you. And
welcome.
Thank you. I grew up in France, and I'm bicultural, and kind of the first half of my professional career, I was really interested in international humanitarian work. So I spent about a decade doing that. I worked a lot in Nepal. That's kind of my second home. I speak Nepali. But I also spent a year in the Middle East in 2002 to 2003. After 9/11, I got really interested in understanding better what was happening. I studied Arabic, and from there, I got really interested in protective accompaniment work. I did that in Nepal and Indonesia and the Middle East, and then eventually joined the United Nations in Nepal. And I liked the work, but there was something that was missing. I felt like I was putting a lot of energy into it, but wasn't really seeing the direct effects of my work. And I had a lot of health issues going on. And in order to address my health issues, I started studying Chinese medicine, doing acupressure, shiatsu. That's when I also started learning about EFT. And so I had this moment of needing to decide if I was going to stay with the UN or try this other route. A relationship that I had long-term was ending. So I decided to follow my intuition, which is what this is all about. And that was before I really had access to my intuition, but I did automatic writing where I just wrote a question and channeled the answer. And it was pulling me towards moving to the Bay Area where I had never been. I was working in Nepal, living in Italy with my partner, with a relationship that ended. So I just kind of followed this on a whim and moved to the Bay Area to study holistic healing. And that was in 2010, and I've been doing it ever since. And it was definitely challenging in the beginning, and I learned so much about what it means to follow your intuition and all the blocks and beliefs and ancestral things I had to clear in the meantime. But now I have a thriving practice. I love what I do. I put all of me in it. I also get to have time to write, which I love doing. And that's actually one of the ways that I access my inner knowing. So is through writing.
That's great. I wanted to ask you a question because, Nepal is one of my places that I go and I love, and I'm very much connected to India. And did you ever connect it to the goddess form there and to the rituals, or do you ever connect to anything that it was connected to the feminine? Because it's huge in Nepal.
I love that question. I did, in the sense of the festivals there. I was really interested in Kumari, the living goddess, although there are aspects of her story that are actually really, really sad when she stops being the living goddess and the things that happen to her. And Holi is a women's festival that I participated in, and most of the people that I worked with many of them were women, and so I got to know that world really well. And the research I was doing when I was there was on a form of bonded labor. So I was looking at all the different levels of society. I was more looking at the ways that women are held down societally. I mean, I think it's, you know, a culture with so many different layers, and like all cultures, lots of contradictions. So there are lots of ways that women and the goddess are revered, and also lots of ways that women societally are held down. And a lot of what I was doing was more political and humanitarian and less spiritual when I was there. That journey for me actually came more when I left, but it was definitely something that I was interested in peripherally in exploring when I was there.
It's interesting because Nepal has that feminine, you know, pull, and I just was curious if you got connected to it. And thank you for sharing, because to me that's really part of Women Rising. You know, it's just to really connect to all the women in the world and to all the different traditions and to all different connections. Even after we leave a place, you never know what will pull us to them, to the women, to the goddess. So thank you for sharing. I'm excited.
I love it. Yeah, such a beautiful country, Kathy.
Well, that is an amazing journey that your life took you on, Jenny, I have to say. And I really do feel like you're a citizen of the world. And I love that your topic today is sort of connecting to that inner knowing, because I think when you are a citizen of the world, and Zephy is the same way, has lived all over, it's like you are your own home a lot of the time, and you are the constant in your life. And so that connection to that inner knowing is very important and very powerful. And I'm excited for you to share that with us today. So I'd love to hear about now what you're going to be sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you. I love being here with both of you. I've been thinking a lot about this topic, and it's so important to me in my life. And it also just feels energizing to be able to share other people and other people's journeys. And for me, this is an ongoing thing of really learning to access that knowing. And I think that's so much part of the divine feminine, and what it is being able to find ways, and inner knowing is something internal, but it's also connected to something that's so much bigger than ourselves. And I feel like societally there are so many conditioned blocks to that knowing, especially in this rationalist society we live in, is where we're really trained often to mistrust the intuitive, to overemphasize the mind. I work a lot with people on anxiety, which for me is really trying to find groundings through thinking in the mind and controlling and managing. And inner knowing is really an opposite energy. And so one of my programs is called Finding the Ground Within. And I think that's really a lot of what I walk clients through is how to go from here in the world, where I'm walking through the world and scanning and figuring things out externally and taking out the input, and then just swiveling and coming back here and really reconnecting and reconciling with that part of us that knows. But in order to do that, often there are lots of things we need to heal and clear in the way. All those messages we received, all the ways, especially, you know, any of us that went to school or went through parenting kind of learned at some point in some way to trust other people's authority over our own. We kind of have to be socialized in some ways, follow the rules or do things to get good grades or get approval or feel safe. And so, and I know that for me, for the longest time, and even now, I found it so much easier to access my intuition for others. It's what I do all the time with my work. I'm very intuitive, I get insights, but then for myself, especially with decision making, I've had to really work through clearing a lot of static and noise and doubt, or ways that I learned to give more power to other people's knowing than my own. So that's part of what I'm hoping to walk people through, to finding what your own blocks are, since this is about clearing the blocks to accessing your knowing. And then really starting to find one's own unique way of hearing that voice, which can be hearing, can be seeing, it can be feeling. That's one of the things I really want to impart, is that inner knowing is not a formula. It's really a unique dialogue, both with ourselves and with something bigger. And we all have very different and unique ways of connecting. And so it's really about trusting our own way rather than trying to compare ourselves to other people or how they do it. And yeah, one of the things I've noticed with clients is that often when we start dropping in, there's some idea that, oh, I have to visualize or it has to look a certain way. And so, yeah, I think part of the process today is being able to release the shoulds and what we think this looks like, to be able to completely own and accept our own unique ways of hearing and knowing.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah, thank you. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that can get in the way, from the things that I've seen with clients. And this is obviously not exhaustive, but this is just some of the ways. And I think one of the most common with my clients is living in the head, like just being really disconnected from body. And again, I think this is something that is so socialized, especially in Western cultures, academic cultures. It's kind of like living from here up, and almost as if we don't have a body, or we're just carting our body around, where the body's, you know, main role is just to follow the head and follow the orders and execute. And really, to me, it's about shifting the order, that it's the head's role to execute, and the guidance and the knowing and the vision comes from the heart and the gut. So I think that's one of the main blocks, is this. And with the head comes right, wrong thinking, comes control, managing, having to have it all figured out. And so that kind of leads me to one of the other blocks, is right, wrong. So another thing that I've noticed is people really holding their intuition to some high standard of, oh, well, I'll only trust it if I follow it and then it was right.
Yeah.
And so if I follow my intuition, but then something bad happens, then I start mistrusting, or, and intuition doesn't actually work that way. It's not in the world of right and wrong. I think for me, what I've learned to accept is that my intuition often changes. One day I get a yes for something, and a week later I might get a no, because something in me has changed and evolved. And I've learned to not disconnect from my intuition, but to learn that it's a whole different channel than the mind channel. It's really much more flowing. It's much more metaphoric. Sometimes I get super clear, detailed answers to things, but often it's much more just pointing me to breathing or slowing down, or to something that's not exactly what my mind is asking for. And then other blocks are just being so disconnected that we don't hear it at all. And so those are some of the things that I've noticed just with some of the people I've been working with can block their own knowing. It's the living in the head, the mistrust, the not being able to hear it at all. And also with some clients, they often say, I don't know what's just trauma responses and my body shutting down, or what's really an intuitive no. So sometimes it's like having difficulty discerning. So I'm curious with the two of you, what you've noticed in your own experience what blocks are, what some blocks that have shown up for you guys.
I always have like when I get distracted or I have too much on my plate and I feel disconnected from myself and like ungrounded. And then I feel like I can't even connect to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
What
me?
about you, Zach? Yeah.
For me, you know, I've been intuitive since I was a little girl. So since I was 6 years old and 9 years old, I would do things that, because it's in my family, our dreams come true in my family. It's just a gift that it's a gift in the family. But the thing is, when I went to the regular world, and when I was like from 16 to 27, I geared away from it. And then 27, it hit me very hard. And I had to really start trusting my intuition and listening to it and following it. To me, that was the hardest thing, you know, to actually really follow my intuition. And the blocks that I kind of worked through them, it was to really start trusting myself all the time. And you know, and I think that to me, that's the most important thing. Once you start trusting your intuition, then your intuition opens up to you, and it's like, it gives you what you want at the moment that you need it. It's not on all the time. You don't have to have it on all the time, but it's there. It's there all the time. You know, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's how I feel, you know? So yeah, sometimes, and if I don't listen to it, like I give you a really simple example today. I was going somewhere to this incredible church that I promised to take my mother, correct? And me and my cousin, we had the GPS on. The GPS told me that I was going the right way. Of course, we were going the wrong way. And we were just going along. And I was like, half an hour into the road, I'm like, she looks at me and I look at her and I'm like, we're going wrong. This is not the correct thing. So we had to turn around. But the reason we needed to go there today, it was because it was his celebration and we had no idea about it. So I felt intuitively that I was tested because we were going totally the wrong direction. And either we're going to, like, you know, it probably was 45 minutes wait. I had to turn around to do another 45 minutes back. So either the test would have been, do I just let it go or I really go? You know, I mean, turn around, go through the tolls again, you know, pay the tolls, use gas, whatever the head might say, you know what I mean? And give it up or just go. And we went, you know, because that was the calling. So I felt that that's what's happening with testing my intuition. Are you going to go or are you just going to give it up? So to me, that was a great example today, you know, that it just happened an hour before we're talking.
That's so perfect. I love that. And one of the things that you said also really lit something up for me of the more you trust your intuition, the more it opens up, and it goes in both directions. I know for me, there was a time when I was maybe getting some inner knowing and overriding it and doing kind of the shoulds or something I thought I should do. And then I was noticing I was hearing it less and less.
Yes.
But it goes in both directions. So it is definitely a muscle. And the more we play with it, especially playing with it lightly, I found that when I get too serious of like, I have to trust my intuition or it has to be right, or it still has this tight energy that's more mindy than the flow of the intuition. But when I play, I don't take it so seriously. I just follow the yes or the no, and I'm not too attached to the outcome. And I'm open to bumps and things changing, and it's not working out just totally aligned or perfectly or the way I think it should if I follow my intuition, then the more fun I can have with it and the more I can actually access things. And it is always there, but for me, it's kind of a tap that I have to tap into. I still have to turn it on or kind of check in or say, hey, wise self, tell me about this. And then I do get answers. So Yeah, I love that example and I love this conversation. So for me, it's all about experiencing. That's really what I'm about with this work. So I'm going to lead the two of you and everybody who's listening into a little experience. First, we're going to do a short guided meditation just to feel into the blocks in the body, the emotions that are present, because for me, one of the reasons it's important to have more access to our body to hear the inner knowing is that in my experience anyway, that's really where that portal lies in terms of the connection between us and the divine and the knowing. And that energy is really through accessing the body and connecting all of our centers, the mind, the heart, and kind of the gut. So that's why I start with a little meditation, and then we're going to do some tapping to clear some of those blocks so that we can have at the end like a little deeper meditation to connect to our wisdom, our wise self, our inner knowing. Are you both ready?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So closing your eyes if it's comfortable. Take my bell, just ring once at the beginning and I invite you to take nice, slow breaths. Each in-breath, to whatever extent feels accessible in this moment, inviting an energy of relaxation. Also welcoming in any parts that are not feeling relaxed. And with each out breath, inviting in anything that's ready to release. Any tension. Thoughts, stuck emotions. Each breath, inviting yourself to drop in a little more deeply into the body, into the present moment. Imagining there's a dial in your head connecting you to your cognitive brain and turning that dial as far down as feels comfortable. Sensing, feeling, or imagining a dial in your body connecting you to your body, heart, intuitive wisdom. And turning that dial up as far as feels comfortable in this moment. And from here, I invite you to call forward, just trusting whatever pops up in your consciousness. Any blocks that might be here currently or have been here in the past, to trusting, hearing, following your knowing. That might be a belief, might be a coping strategy like needing to control or hypervigilance. Might be an emotion like fear, anxiety, confusion, overwhelm, insecurity. Once you bring up what the block might be, I invite you to notice if there are any emotions connected with this. Even if the block itself is an emotion like fear, anxiety, there might be secondary emotions like frustration or grief, powerlessness. And just noticing. Noticing what messages you might have received about trusting yourself, trusting your knowing. Might be that it's selfish or arrogant, or that others are better or unsafe. Or we'll lose love. And just noticing what shows up for you. If for any of these questions nothing pops up, that's totally fine too. And just stay with your body, breathing. And then noticing when you're starting to feel into, to connect to any blocks, anything that might be preventing you again from either hearing, or it might be from trusting or following your inner knowing. Where do you feel that block in your body? And what does it feel like? You might notice if there's a color or a texture to that energy. And sometimes, especially when there's a history of trauma, pattern of dissociation, or that living in the head I was talking about, sometimes we don't feel our body at all, or just the whole body goes numb, just living from the head up. So that's also a perfectly valid response to this question. Feel my body. And then just asking yourself if there was an age associated with this, or an age range when I first started to disconnect from my own knowing. What age would it be? Sometimes it's in the womb at birth. Sometimes this is an inherited pattern that nobody in our family trusts their knowing, so we were born with that. And sometimes there's like an age range. When we first started disconnecting, mistrusting, maybe giving more power to other people's knowing. And just sending compassion to any younger self that might have gotten that message, learned this as a coping strategy. And then finally, I invite you to call forth, it could be a future self, maybe in a year from now, or a parallel version of you, or a wise self version of you, higher self version, however you conceive of this part of you, that's already living from this place of being more connected to intuitive knowing. Has already healed with loving attention this block. And just imagine in as much detail as possible how you're feeling and living your life from this place when there's more fluid connection to your own knowing. You might get some information also about how that works for you. If there are certain times, maybe walking or in water, or certain elements that are helpful, or writing, dancing, cooking, working out, certain times when you're a more open channel to your intuition. You can see if there's anything that's coming to you from about that. Taking another nice breath, sending gratitude for anything that came up for you. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. If you're watching this at home, feel free to pause this video and write down any of the answers to the questions that you got during the meditation, because then I'll be writing down here with Zephy and Kathy some of the answers to some of the questions, just so that I can then guide you in tapping on this. And for you at home, you can replace some of the things that I'm saying when we do the tapping session with the answers that you got during the meditation. So Kathy and Zephy, is it okay if I ask you some questions?
Yeah,
Sure.
Perfect. And the two of you can either say what you got in your meditation, or you can just make it up or use information from your clients, or from the people you work with. So it can be as personal or not personal as you want to make it. It's just helpful for me to have a few answers to work with, just as an example, and for when we're guiding the circle. And so the first question is just kind of like a one-sentence book chapter title of what the block is. So for example, that could be just mistrusting my knowing, or thinking other people know what I do, or it's not safe, or again, it could be just anxiety and emotion. So either one of you, what the block is.
For me, I found that there's a lot of judgment that blocks my intuition, which I thought was actually quite interesting, because I didn't ever really name it. And then that judgment leads to some anxiety and this sense of, that I'm performing for somebody or somewhere, and that things have to be right or whatever. And that when I'm in my intuition, that doesn't exist. That's not there,
Thank you. And judgment of self or other, if you don't mind answering, and you don't have to.
More myself, yeah.
I'm just writing this all down. Beautiful, thanks. What about you, Zephy? What's the block? If there was a block, I know you said you worked through this, so it can be from your past. It doesn't have to be a block.
well, I don't want to say that I'm perfect, because none of us are, but at this moment, what I felt was, I had it in my head and it's gone, more of like, the block is sometimes, and I think that happens, it's not just mine, and I feel that it happens to a lot of people, is how can I talk to someone and really understand what I'm saying? How can I explain myself to them and them getting me, understanding me? And I think a lot of people go through that block. It's a big thing for a lot of people also.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. I
Because they
know that's
can't be heard. The question will be, I cannot be heard, correct? So that's the block. So how can I, you know, us and others can clear that?
yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And so what emotions were you accessing? I know, Kathy, you said anxiety. Were there other emotions that arose for either of you?
Like, I don't know if it's an emotion, but like a disconnect, like, you know, like that not being grounded feeling.
I think that's an emotion probably that will connect to my thing for others also, you know, that people feel disconnect when they're not, you know, heard.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they go, am I saying the right thing? Where do I want, you know, it's kind of like they feel disconnected.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you both so much. And so then what is the belief associated? I know, Kathy, I heard something about I need to get it right.
Yeah.
Talking for either of you, if there, and for you, Zefia, is really hearing like, I'm not going to be understood, felt like that was a belief, or I need to be understood.
Well, I think both. It could be a belief system in, yeah.
Any other beliefs that came up?
I think a lot of people have, you know, beliefs when their intuition is, you know, like a lack, I don't know the right wording, but there's a lack of trust. It kind of goes to what Zephy was saying a little earlier. It's like that intuition is there, but we don't quite trust it, you know, and it's like, can I trust myself, I guess, or I don't trust myself.
Yeah, I know one belief I've had to work through quite a lot is others know better. I think that definitely came from the French like schooling system. So really having to learn to like defer to another authority and you know, rote learning and things like that. So yeah. Beautiful. And you don't have to answer this, but if there was an age or an age range when you kind of started disconnecting from your own knowing or developing this belief, what age or age range came up for you?
Didn't really connect to a specific age. I think it was more a feeling of like when I would feel very vulnerable or something like that sometimes.
Okay, thanks. Zephy, did you get any age or age range? I know earlier you were talking about kind of 16 to.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, but then, you know, I just put it in a more general sense, the whole question. So, you know, that can happen when, for some people, when they're very young, when they're 5 to, you know, it can happen very, very young. So I do have, you know, I don't want to talk about my clients, but there's people that I work with that have that since they were very little, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I think for me, mistrusting my unknown started pretty young, a little bit around 3, definitely more around 5. So
5 is a
definitely.
very powerful age for, you know, that happens because we come to some kind of knowing and we get more, you know, connected. And so anyway, that's like a general age.
Absolutely. And so then the final question is, and again, you can say that for yourselves from the journey you've already been on, or anything you got in the meditation or things you've noticed from your clients, like on the other side of this, when we are connected to our intuition and living from that place, like what are some of the feelings that emerge from that? For example, it could be like, oh, I feel free and light and in the flow, or I feel interconnected to all things, or, you know, so what are kind of some feelings that you've had, could, you know, in the present tense when you are really living from that connection to intuition?
For me, like I feel patient because a lot of the times I'm impatient. I feel like I have to, you know, figure it all out or whatever. And when I'm in my intuition, I feel really patient. I feel really present. I feel really now, and I feel connected, and there's an ease, like I don't have to try so hard.
Beautiful, I love that. What is that, you, Seffi?
Well, kind of think about my journey today and following that intuition. It's total peace and happiness because I did follow it. I did, you know, I was out there to make this happen, and because it was intuitively, and it happened, and I felt totally surrendered, not upset at all about, you know, turning around and driving an hour more. You know what I mean? It was this total peace and happiness. If I want to connect to that, yeah, total peace and happiness, and enjoy the ride, and, you know, just had fun with it, and just being pleased of that I made it happen.
I love that.
I love that. Yeah, I love that you had that experience right before coming here. It's so fresh and present and perfect.
Yeah.
That's really part of it. When we're more in that place, these serendipities happen and things, you know, feel like they align, and everything feels like, oh, there are all these synchronicities that happen. So you had that experience, and then we're here talking about inner knowing. And yeah, I know that that's often what I've noticed when I'm more trusting in flow, there's more opening for those connections to happen. So beautiful. So we're going to just jump into tapping. So for anybody who's never done the tapping before, you can follow along with us. I'll be naming the points. I won't necessarily show the points beforehand. So we're just going to be tapping on different points in the body, and I'm going to be saying things and you're going to be repeating them out loud. And for those of you doing it at home with EFT, for EFT to work, it's important that the things that you say really feel true to you, because so much of our wounding and our blocks come from what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. So that feeling of, oh, something feels true to me, but I'm being told that it's not okay to say it or feel it, or somebody else is saying something that I sense isn't true. So for anybody who's doing this with the recording, feel free to just use your own words when you say it back. And there will be times when I won't be having you repeat what I'm saying, and I might have you drop into a little meditative space with some of the parts that we're working on. So let's tap on the side of the hand, taking a deep breath. Even though part of me really wants to access my inner knowing.
Even though part of me wants to really access my inner knowing.
And part of me still has some blocks.
And part of me still has some blocks.
I'm open to loving and accepting myself.
I'm open to loving and accepting myself.
Deeply and completely.
Deeply and completely.
Deeply and completely.
Even with this.
Even with this.
Even with us.
Good. And tapping on the head. hello part of me that wants to access my knowing.
Hello, part of me that wants to access my knowing.
Inside of the eyebrows. I feel you.
I feel you.
You.
Outside of the eyes, I acknowledge you.
I acknowledge.
you.
Under the eyes. I want to access my inner knowing too.
I want to access my inner knowing too.
Under and above the lips. Because when I do.
Because when I do.
And I do.
Under the collarbone, there's more flow.
There's more flow.
Good. Let's take a deep breath. Middle of the sternum. And it's possible I can be patient.
And it's possible I can be patient.
Tapping on the ribs. So this one is right here on the ribs. Because when I get impatient.
Because when I get impatient.
Side of the body, you can do this with one hand or both hands. Or frustrated.
Or frustrated.
And inside and outside of the wrist. It slows down the whole process.
It slows down the whole process.
Other wrist, inside and outside. Let's take a deep breath. And blocks my inner knowing even more.
And blocks my knowing, inner knowing even more.
Good. Head. So maybe I can just bring loving energy to the block.
So maybe I can just bring loving energy to the block.
Inside of the eyebrows. High self-judgment.
High self-judgment.
High self-judgment.
Outside the eyes. High part of me that really wants to be understood.
High part of me that really wants to be understood.
Under the eyes and heard.
And heard.
Under and above the lips. I see you.
I see you.
I feel you.
I feel you.
Under the collarbone. I know you're here for a reason.
I know you're here for a reason.
Let's take a deep breath in. Exhale out the mouth, making a little sighing sound. Beautiful. Middle of the sternum. I've been having so many emotions about this.
I've been having so many emotions about this.
Anxiety.
Anxiety.
Ribs. Confusion.
Confusion.
Frustration.
Frustration.
Side of the body. Mistrust.
Mistrust.
And sometimes I just feel disconnected.
And sometimes I just feel disconnected.
Ungrounded.
Ungrounded.
Good. Wrist. Let's take a deep breath and make noise on the exhale. Ha! You can shake it out if you want to. Ah. Other wrist. So many emotions.
So many emotions.
Who wants to feel all of that?
Who wants to feel that?
Tapping on the head. And it's possible I can just accept that the emotions are here.
And it's possible I can just accept that the emotions are here.
Good. Inside of the eyebrow. I developed beliefs about my knowing.
So many beliefs about my knowing.
Outside of the eyes. I need to get it right.
I need to get it right.
Under the eyes. I'm not going to be understood or heard.
I'm not going to be understood or heard.
Under and above the lips, breathe. I can't trust myself.
I can't trust myself.
Others know better.
Others know better.
Collarbone. And I've been storing all of that in my body.
And I've been storing all that in my body.
Hi, body.
Hi, body.
Middle of the sternum. And I invite you both now, you don't need to repeat what I'm saying for this part, to just close your eyes. I'm going to keep naming the tapping points, ribs, and just feel into your body. Feel into where you might feel that block. Again, you might leave your body. There might be places that get really tight. And just breathe into those places. Just send those parts compassion. Side of the body. Just ask your body if it has a message for you, a request. Just taking a nice deep breath. And if either of you want to share any message you're getting from your body, feel free to share it and I'll repeat it after you, but that's optional. Wrist. Hi, body.
Hi,
Hi, body.
Other wrist. Thanks for storing all of these thoughts and emotions.
Thanks for storing all these thoughts and emotions.
And all the messages that I received about my inner knowing.
And all these messages I received about my inner knowing.
Head. Until I was ready to look at them.
Till I was ready to look at them.
Inside of the eyebrows. And I'm ready now.
And I'm ready now.
now.
Good. Outside of the eyes. And I invite you and anybody who's listening at home to close your eyes. Again and again, this part you don't have to repeat, but I'll be naming the points under the eyes. And just feel into that young self that might have gotten messages that you need to get it right. To let go of your own knowing in order to please others, under and above the lips. And imagine that your current self is there with your young self. And you're giving your younger self love. Under the collarbone. Letting them know that you're there from the future, you're there to support them, that you're proud of them for doing whatever they needed to do to survive. Middle of the sternum. Maybe saying to your young self anything that might have been really helpful for them to hear at the time. Could be, it's not your fault, you're not alone. It's okay to have these feelings, whatever it might have been, or whatever might be helpful. Ribs and deep breath. Side of the body, and you can repeat after me. I acknowledge my younger self.
I acknowledge my younger self.
Inside and outside of the wrist for doing whatever she needed to do.
Whatever she needed to do.
or whatever she needed to do.
By the wrist. Thank you, younger me.
Thank you, younger me.
All over your head. It was so smart and brave of you
It was so smart and brave of you
to disconnect from your knowing.
to disconnect from your knowing,
Inside of the eyebrows to feel safe.
to feel safe,
Outside of the eyes. Or to get approval.
to get approval.
Under the eyes. We can hang on to this as long as we want to.
We can hang on to this as long as we want to.
Under the lips. And it's possible, it's safe to let go of this.
And it's possible it's safe to let go of this.
Good. Under the collarbone, breathe. And I invite you to imagine that you and whatever younger self or selves, it might be a whole slew of younger selves who developed coping strategies, and could be again of control, of living in your head, of mistrusting your own knowing. Imagine that both of you together, and you can do this with me, are holding in front of you any beliefs, any coping strategies that you developed to keep you safe back then that might have led you to disconnect from your own knowing, or to really try to like make sure even when you're connected to your own knowing that everybody else has to understand your knowing or be on board. So whatever that strategy is, let's hold it. The beliefs, the strategies, you can pile them up together. And then really honoring those, thanking them for how they protected you, thanking them for how they served you, helped you survive, got you to where you are today. And then if both you and your younger self feel excited to and ready, if not, you can just do more tapping on the first part. If you all feel excited and ready, let's release these to energy, love, light, shaking it out, releasing any cords that are tying you to those beliefs in whatever way you want to. You can be brushing your body, cutting the cords. Again, this is really about trusting your own knowing. And then bringing that inner child into your heart. Bring her back to current times. So we're going to fast forward from then to now, so that that younger inner child gets to be integrated with the current self, with all the wisdom and knowing and resources and choices you have now. And from this place, I invite you to call forth again that wise self, parallel self, future self who's already really in the flow, living from that place of trust, of surrender, of feeling patient, present, connected, easeful, at peace, happy, surrendered, and whatever qualities your wise future parallel self has. And imagining that you're merging with that version of you. And just feeling in every cell of your body what that feels like when you're living from this place of trust, of surrender. Just imagining you're going through your day. Just opening to any information about how this feels, what this looks like for you. Anything in particular that really helps you be in this place of connection, flow. And then dropping all of these feelings, sights, whatever you're sensing, into your crown. Feeling this permeate all the neural pathways that might have been conditioned towards mistrusting, you want to do that physically, you can also bring your hands to your crown, just feeling your head, rewiring those neural pathways towards the possibility of trust, of allowing, opening, listening, and then into the whole rest of your body, rewiring that into your neural pathways, your nervous system, into your cells, reprogramming this on a cellular level, to your muscles, bones. Bring this image, this feeling of being merged with this version of you into your heart. Bring your hands to your heart again. Filling all 4 chambers of your heart with this feeling, this new possibility of flow and trust. And when you're ready, you can let that radiate back out into the world, sending it up and down your timeline. And last thing, just tapping all over your body from head to toe, shaking it out, touching something that feels grounding. For me, it's my thighs, my wood or the floor, or rock. Beautiful. Thank you both for going on that journey with me.
Thank you, Jenny. That was great. And I loved how, we got to release and then claim that sort of connection to our ability to access that inner knowing and to stand in our intuition. It's a really important thing to have access to. And, just taking that time to go inside and release some of this energy that has maybe been that interference, I guess, with that intuition. So it's really lovely.
Thank you. I love that. How was that for you, Zephy?
It was amazing. And also I feel that doing this work is actually very easy, tapping into your intuitive but imaginary, self also. Like you can bring very easily the little girl in front of you or the little person in front of you that has been hurt or gone through all that. And you can actually really open up and release it and see it and then become one with it. I think that was the visualization, it was amazing. So thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
So welcome. I love that. It was so fun to do this with both of you and to feel the collective energy. And yeah, it's really about releasing the blocks, is really about bringing that love and care and gratitude to the young self, and really understanding that the blocks have so much wisdom in them for the time, and then that now we can update the information so that that young self gets full advantage of our current situation and doesn't need to be stuck in whatever old programming that they experienced then. So I love that. And one of the things I want to just quickly emphasize is, again, that it's different for all of us. So really the trusting part of the process is learning what that looks like. I know for me, water is an element that really helps me. So I often get insight in the shower or near waterfalls, or when I'm cooking. Writing is another way, just like asking a question. I'll often say, hey, dear wise self, tell me this, and then I'll channel the answer. And typing for me helps because I can just type without looking or thinking. But everybody has their own way, unique way of accessing. It could be, again, dancing, running, just slowing down. So that's part of it, is our way of having knowing doesn't look like anybody else's and doesn't need to either. And this is one of my favorite things with clients, and to help people learn to reconnect and to trust and to hear their own wisdom. That's what healing is all about. Nobody else can give that to us. And so I do that in different ways. I do that through individual sessions that integrate lots of different modalities. So tapping is one of them, but also shamanism, energy healing. So you can find more information about that on www.radiantwholenesshealing.com. And I offer 30-minute free consultations if you want to know more about that. I do tapping circles every couple of months. So that's also on my website and on Meetup, where I go through a similar format to what we just did here. And I also have a 4-month body-based program to reduce anxiety, because that's so much of what can get in the way, like that staticky energy and kind of that external focus of connecting to our inner knowing. And also, as of October, I have a YouTube channel where I have a lot of different offerings, meditations, tapping videos that can help you access that more. So that's just Jenny Brav, Somatic Healer on YouTube.
Well, thank you, Jenny. And I really encourage everybody to check out her stuff. It's very wonderful and powerful. And we were so grateful for you to be here today and to share this wonderful radiant wholeness with us. So thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
So much. It was my honor and pleasure.